Welcome YouTube. So today we'll talk about your USMLE timeline, whether you are a medical student or a graduate or in your intern year. What do you need to do from the day you start preparing for your USMLE exams till you match and beyond? So we'll talk all about it and we'll go step by step and tell you exactly what you need to do and when for all aspects of the USMLE from scratch to match. Hello everyone and welcome to our channel where we give you regular guidance and tips on all aspects of USMLE. So if this is your first time here, consider subscribing to us on our YouTube channel as well as follow us on Instagram. So we have received various messages and emails talking about the length and the duration of the USMLE journey and how people have heard it can take years and years to get through the USMLE process, certification and match. So while it's true that the USMLE process is slightly longer, but if you have the right plan, the execution strategy, then you can finish it off effectively, efficiently, and get the right match, the right results in the least amount of time given where you are. Of course, a single strategy or a timeline will not work for all of us. It's not one size fits all. So depending on where you are, whether you are a medical student or a graduate or an intern year, you may need different timelines. It also depends on how much dedicated time you have, if you have electives or hands-on experiences, when you finished all that. So we are going to divide today's timeline into three separate categories. The first, we'll talk about timeline if you're a medical student. Second, we are going to talk about if you are in your intern year. And finally, we will talk about the timeline if you've already graduated. And for ease of convenience, what we have done is we have divided this entire process in two phases. Phase one is your exam preparation, your USCEs or the clinical experiences, the step 2 CS and the certification. And phase two, which is common for all the type of applicants, is the match season. So what do you need to do to get your ERAS, PS, CV, the personal statement and CV ready? Now let's get started with medical students. So if you're a medical student, this particular timeline on getting started to get your application ready will be very, very useful. But of course, even if you are an intern or a graduate, watch this carefully because the activities are going to be very common. So as a medical student, deciding on this journey has huge advantages, as you know. It'll give you a lot of time in hand to plan and execute the strategy that we are about to lay out for you. The milestone that you'll need to plan and get through in your journey will mostly be about the USMLE exams, the US clinical experience or the USCE, getting the application ready, the match, and research and volunteering. The strategy for the medical student should be as follows. So the start. Right from the first year or second year of the medical school, it'll be a good time for you to start preparing for step one. This will give you an enough opportunity to orient yourself early on in your career to the USMLE style of preparing, rather than doing first for the medical school and then redoing it in the USMLE way again. For more details on when and how to prepare for USMLE in the medical school, you can watch our videos. We have a complete video on the resources and the plan, and I'll have the link to it in the description below. Now, when do you take the step one? So as you can see here, third year of MBBS is a good time to take step one as you're fresh from the basic sciences and the academics are less hectic compared to the final year. Try to finish step one with 2 to 3 months to spare in the third year so that you have enough dedicated time to do well in the third year exams as well. Now part three, when do you take step 2 CK, apply for USCE and step 2 CS? So that's what we are going to talk about now. Final year, as you can see here, is a good time to start preparing for CK as the subjects in final year are the same ones that are tested on CK. So you should plan to take your CK towards the ending of the first half of internship. So if your internship is say 12 months, around the 6-7 months of internship is when you should plan to take step 2 CK. And you can take 1 month off before the CK exam to prepare well. You should then apply for clerkships, which are the electives, and step 2 CS or the equivalent. Now, a new prerequisite for applying to CS has that you should have passed step 1 anyway. So you can apply for CS after passing step 1. So apply for these electives and step 2 CS soon after you have the result for step 1 in the final year. Schedule them during the second half of the internship immediately after the CK. So first half and then the second half. So last 6 months of the internship. Now, applying in the final year is very helpful as the clerkships and CS will have long wait times. And it's also better to take the CK before you leave for the US so that you don't break the flow of preparation. So the fourth step now is the clerkships and the CS. Now complete these clerkships and step 2 CS during the second half of internship. Of course, you should take your CS after you have done a couple of rotations so that you are used to the US healthcare system and your CS becomes easy. So first do those clerkships, then take the CS during the second half of the internship. Of course, due to the pandemic or any other changes, things could change. There are tele-rotations or otherwise. So if you need help with electives, let us know, we can also help. Then the next step is how do you get ready for the application? Now you got to come back from the US, finish the rest of your internship, graduate and get the ECFMG certification. This is one of the most important parts of this timeline. You should try to be ECFMG certified and application ready by September 15th or whatever is the application start date for that year's match. But also, as we have noted down below, start preparing for step 3 and plan to be ready with the results by September 15th in an ideal situation. But step 3, you can push out till December as well. That should be fine. This will give you a definite edge in the match process and possibility, of course, of getting the H-1B visa program for those of you who want to go for H-1 visas. So that's how you plan this thing. But there are a couple of other things before you actually get ready for the match. And those are concerning research opportunities and volunteering opportunities. So if you're in India, for example, ICMR projects, summer research fellowship programs are some of the research opportunities that medical students can work on. And for other countries, I'm sure there are similar opportunities. So finding a research mentor or a guide in your medical school and working on projects is a good idea. It will definitely get you some hands-on experience, papers published. Of course, we at USMLE Sarthi also run a research course that leads to publications in US journals, which are PubMed index. So if you're interested, you should definitely look it up. The second thing you can do is join and volunteer for organizations in the medical schools. There are several NGOs like Doctors Without Borders during your PSM, rural posting, etc. So this will also help beef up your application. So try to do that because this will be important. And of course, then we will talk about the actual match strategy. So what do you do around the match timeline? But before we do that, let's move on to interns and graduate and their timeline. Okay, so let's say you are doing an internship, and of course, this model applies to those people who are having internship as a requirement of their MBBS, simply because the electives can be done within that internship. Of course, you can obviously do the internship after graduation in certain countries, so this plan can work well for you as well. It's obviously never too late to start preparing for the USMLE. And internship is a common year when a lot of IMGs start their preparation. So keep your spirits high and focus on your goals, and you will do it in time. Now, how do you do it? Okay, when do you start and take the step 1? Start preparing for step 1 right from the start of the intern year. Although the step 1 might take you around 7 months to finish, ideally, if you are in medical school, with the intern year, it is going to stretch to about 9 to 11 months, but it can be done within 9 to 11 months with your focus and determination. The trick here is not to take time off at the beginning of the intern year. Start your preparation, continue intern year, and then you can take the 1 month off before the step 1 exam. So between 9 to 11 months. Step 2, taking the CK, applying for USCE, and the step 2 CS. When do you do that? So obviously, You need to be a student to be able to do the electives. Many students don't take the graduation. They take the time off from internship after, say, 9, 10, or 11 months. They prepare for CK after that, and then take the CK exam in 6 to 7 months. Now, of course, you don't have to worry if that's not possible. We will talk about an alternative plan after this. So you also need to apply for electives and step 2 CS after receiving the step 1 score and schedule them after the CK exam. So I hope this is clear. After the 9 to 11 months of internship, you need to take a break, prepare for CK in 6 to 7 months, but simultaneously apply for CS and also your electives. So then, of course, doing the USCE and step 2 CS. Now, then you complete the electives and CS during the next 6 months. Of course, you can see how the timeline is getting stretched now at the bottom. But then at the end of this, you have already completed your CS, you have your USCE, and you have your CK. Now, of course, you need to get ready for the application. So right here, you come back from the US, finish the rest of your internship, the remaining 1 month, you graduate and get the ECFMG certified. The most important part here, of course, as I mentioned, as medical student, is the timeline. You should try to get ECFMG certified and application ready by September 15th, or whatever is the application start date for that year's match. Now, simultaneously, as with the other plan, you should start preparing for step 3. Plan to be ready with the results by September 15th. If you think it's too aggressive, at least by December, you should have a plan to ready and take step 3. This will greatly help you in the match process and possibility if you need H-1B visa. Like with the medical students, research and volunteering are going to be key to your success. Find your research mentor or guide in the medical school. Work on projects. That's always a good idea. It'll get you some hands-on experience and papers published. Ask for research opportunities during your rotations in the US. So this is also interesting and you should try that. This is very valuable for you. You can join volunteer organizations in medical school, the NGOs, like with the medical students, Doctors with Borders, during your PSM posting. If, of course, you need help with research, we have our own research course that you can take. It'll lead to publications. Now, if you remember, I had spoken about an alternative plan for interns and the difference between them. So this plan, if it works for you, if you can take a break of about 1 year in the internship, that's great. But there are colleges, there are schools who do not allow that. So if you think extending the externship by 1 year won't be possible, then you should look for electives that don't require step 1. So there are many like UIC, Harvard, Yale, Stanford. There are many that may not require step 1, and their policy keeps on changing. So there will always be some that don't require step 1. You can apply to these programs at the beginning of your internship along with the preparation of step 1. So you obviously don't have the score then. And then you schedule them after your step 1 exam. Apply for step 2 CS as soon as you have the step 1 exam result, because for now it is required. You cannot schedule CS without the step 1 result. So that will have to wait. You can complete your clerkship and CS after step 1, come back and finish the rest of the intern year and graduate. So in this plan, of course, you don't have the minimal extension of externship for a valid reason to do clerkships and the CS. Obviously, you're going to miss a few clerkship programs which need a step 1 score, but still, this will work for you if you cannot take that 1 year break for internship. And then, of course, we'll talk about the match timeline, which is common for all the 3 type of students. So the next most common scenario is planning and preparing for USMLE as an IMG graduate. And you may have a different strategy, but you will need to be ready with step 1 like the other 2 segments also. And it's not as hard as you may think it is if you have a plan that you can execute. All right, so let's see what you need to do if you are already a graduate, as we have laid out on this chart here. So 12 months, 15 months, 20 to 21 months at the bottom, keep an eye out. This is before the match. Starting your USMLE journey, start preparing for step one. Plan to take it aggressively between 7 to 9 months of preparation. This is important. You've already graduated, so try to squeeze in time and do well in the 7 to 9 months period that you've set up. Verifying your medical credential early will be very helpful and will save you time towards the application deadline. So also try to do that credentialing here as we have mentioned on the top. Like I said, we have another video on the resources and planning for step one that you can watch. It'll give you step by step on how to prepare for step one. Then, of course, comes the CK, step two CK, applying for USCE. In your case, it'll be hands on, and step two CS. So start preparation for step 2 CK and finish the exam again in 6 to 7 months. You should apply for hands-on. You cannot do electives because you're a graduate. So you should apply for hands-on and step 2 CS after receiving step 1 scores. Although as a graduate, you will have externship opportunities even without step 1 score. But you should schedule these hands-on activities and CS after the CK exam, as we have mentioned here. So take step 2 CK and then go for your externship and step 2 CS. Complete these in about 5 to 6 months after your CK. So after the CK, the next 5 to 6 months, you should take your CS and these externship. And as you can see at the bottom, the timeline is moving. Then, of course, getting ready for the application. You will automatically be ECFMG certified if you're done with step 1, CK, and CS, and your medical credentials are verified. Like with the other two set of students, the medical students and the interns, the important point for you is to be ECFMG certified and application ready by September 15th, or whatever is the application start date for that year's match. Step 3 is absolutely critical for you. In fact, more critical for you than for the students or the interns. It will be an asset for your application. And if you have gaps or longer YOG, absolutely plan to do it. Before September would be ideal, before September 15th. But if you cannot do it, at least try to do it by December 31st so that you can also get a chance to match at the H-1B visa program. Like with the other two set of students, research and volunteering is important for you. It is actually more important for you. So ask for research opportunities during your rotations in the US. Working as a research assistant, which you can do in medical research labs and hospitals, can help you get those research experience, which is very valuable, and publications. Of course, like I mentioned, we also run research course. So if you're interested, look it up and we can help you publish as well. You should also be planning to do volunteering. So with NGOs, Doctors Without Borders, and so on that I've mentioned. Now let's discuss the match timeline. This is common for all sets of students, whether you are a medical student, intern, or a graduate. You have to look at it carefully. So the most critical aspect here is to ensure that your ERAS CV and personal statement for residency are well done without errors and reflect the quality that the programs expect. So you need to really take time to write a good ERAS application and personal statement. This is a major issue. Students push it out too much, and in the end, they do a shabby job. So mistakes in your ERAS CV and personal statement come back to haunt you. They will prove very costly with these mistakes. So start early and keep improving your ERAS CV and PS as we mentioned here. Target your first draft by late July. Personal statement, of course, can be more time consuming for some students, but it's also a very important part of your application. Make sure if you need help, you can look up our courses, but this is an important part. Then, of course, comes the researching of the program. So you can use Sarthi list, R list if you are our student. Obviously, Frida and Residency Explorer are there. The point here is the program outreach. You will need extensive research when you reach out to the programs, as we've mentioned here, either before the application or later on in the seasons. So when you email them or call them, you have to demonstrate the knowledge of the program, which will come in very handy. Programs like it, and you will save time in the interview season. So plan this well. So program search, ERAS CV, PS, All that needs to be planned well in the July to September timeframe. Now, between July and late August, you also need to make sure your letters are uploaded. These are the letters of recommendation along with your MSPE, the medical school performance evaluation. Delays are common in the last few days before the application day. So in this case, September 15th, as the system will get overwhelmed by the sheer volume. And also don't wait for the last few days to ask your attending about uploading the LORs. They are quite busy and it could delay your LORs. Now, another activity during the July to mid-September time frame is preparing and sending letters or emails to the programs. So this will also take time. And if you're our student as enrolled in USMLE Sarthi, we help you, but it takes time. Try your best to be ECFMG certified by August, like we have already mentioned. It is not a requirement for application, but there is no harm in completing the paperwork and finishing it off before the application. Remember this. The D-Day, of course, is September 15th. Try your best to apply by day one. It is not that you cannot apply after the application opens up, but you know how many applications a program gets on day one, in this case, September 15th, up to 3,000 application is what an IMG friendly program gets on day one. So that's the reason you should apply early. Of course, there may be years then this deadline may be pushed out due to pandemic or other reasons. So in 2020, the application deadline was October 21st, but for most practical purposes, target September 15th as the deadline. Then we come to the interview invite season. So in a typical season, interview invites will start in the last week or last 10 days of September, and the interviews go on till about middle of Feb. Programs can go back to on-site interviews. Due to pandemic, they had been conducting virtual interviews, but if the programs go back to on-site interviews, you will need to be in the US to attend those interviews, like we have mentioned here. So you have to be physically present in the US between September and mid-Feb to be able to attend these interviews. Of course, prepare well for these interviews. These will be make or break for your residency chances. For many of you, these are the first formal interviews you will ever face. But that does not mean you cannot perform well. It will need a lot of practice. What you need is to start thinking about your experiences from, say, medical school, work, volunteering, so on. These experiences will give you the content to answer most of the questions. As you are working on your CV, personal statement, the content of many of these interview focus areas should be gathered. Of course, we run a complete course on ERAS CV, PS, interview prep. So if you need help, let us know because this is very critical. Then, of course, the D-Day is March. Middle of March is when you get to know whether you have matched or not. There is, of course, a deadline to submit your rank order list. We have a different video on how to make your rank order list, but you have to submit your rank order list. Middle of March, you will get to know whether you have matched, and after you have matched, where you have matched in that match week. There is also SOAP in that week. We have other videos on the SOAP, how to get onto SOAP. But the point is, by middle of March, you will know where you are going. So the next period between March and June for most of you will be the visa changes and other paperwork that you end up doing with the program. And 1st of July is when the residency formally starts, but many of the program will start the orientation process around 20th of June. So this is the entire match timeline starting from July, the application, the interview prep, the interviewing at the program, submitting your rank order list, till the time you hear the good news of match and joining the residency. So hopefully this was useful. As I mentioned, it is all about controlling the controllables. You can all match. What it needs is a dedicated plan and how you execute it to the best of your abilities so that you take the most efficient way and have a successful journey with least exhaustion. So if you have any questions, let us know, share it with others so that they can also find it useful, and good luck for your USMLE journey.